Hello, esteemed adjudicators of the Opening Minds Innovation Award. I'm both slightly abashed and terribly proud to present the Little Elit community as a nominee for this award, and I thank you for the opportunity to do so. My name is Ken Campbell, and I'm the founder of LittleElit.com. So, who are we? Little Elit is a grassroots crowdsourced community of children's librarians who work to develop best practices for the incorporation of new media into library collection services and programs for children aged 0 to 6. So that's the official story now. But this blog started out as a documentation mechanism for me to record my experiments with using my iPad in Storytime in various venues around the San Francisco Bay Area. But in the 2 years since I started working on this topic, we've grown into a community of motivated children's librarians and PhD students and researchers and library profs and consultants and even a social worker and app reviewers who are mobilizing to provide curation, evaluation, and implementation media mentorship for families with young children and other professionals and stakeholders who serve young children. So why is there a need for what we do? Well, that's a good question. I wasn't really aware of the scope of the need for a resource like ours when I started this journey. I was just following an idea in my little section of the universe, and I assumed that the gurus in Storytime land and in our advocacy organizations like the American Library Association and the Association for Library Services to Children were already producing resources and support for on-the-ground librarians such as myself who were branching out into emergent technologies designed for use with very young children. But as it turned out, those organizations weren't really developing anything on a wide or unified scale, and there still is contention within my profession around the ethics of using technology with young children for which we have no long-term evidence-based research. The need that we have been filling is setting the very basic foundations for developing best practices around those concerns and using them as a frame to turn around and serve as mentors for others who are looking for guidance in the use of new media with young kids. So for the purposes of this award, you need evidence of awesomeness. And it just so happens that at the very core of what we've been doing at Little Elit is documenting the innovative programs that children's librarians have been launching in their communities across the continent. We've been collecting evidence in the form of videos, images, parent and staff surveys, examples of policies, and other kinds of lovely public sector paperwork, like community needs assessments, and then implementations based around those community needs assessments. And I just want to point out how personal this topic is for me. That picture is my son and my dad reading a book together on the iPad. So the issues of young children interacting with technology are issues that I deal with every day as a mom. I'm looking for evidence that I'm doing the very best I can for my son. So it's not only professional practice, it's personal practice as well. And that's true for a lot of my contributors. So I'd like to show you a few of our projects and the people behind them too. So let's start with me. This is me from a program I did at the Mountain View Public Library. And I like showing this so that people get that we're not replacing any traditional storytelling techniques or props with digital facsimiles. We're simply adding new tools to the storyteller's toolkit in a developmentally appropriate way. So let me show you some of my other librarians now. This is Carissa Christner. She's at the South Central Library System in Wisconsin, and she's using a storytelling app called Infiniscroll in her preschool story time. Carissa was recently profiled in an article by the Wisconsin State Journal for the leadership that she has shown in her community based around the work she's been doing with Little Elit. So mad props to her for advocating within her community and modeling healthy media behaviors in her story time. This is the Watertown Free Public Library in Massachusetts. They have a program called the iLearn Preschool, which is a program that combines modeling, which is an essential part of all of the programs featured on Little Elit, in addition to parent engagement. So that's the first half of the program, the modeling, similar to a traditional story time, followed by a hands-on session where each caregiver and child pair gets their own device to try that are provided by the library and preloaded with apps. So this is what the second stage of the program looks like. Each couple, caregiver-child couple, gets an iPad with an audio splitter and headphones, and the librarian guides them through a number of apps and developmentally appropriate techniques for engaging with the child, using the content as a focal point for interaction, not as a babysitter. Again, that is the focus of all of the programs on Little ELIT. It's engagement between the parent or caregiver and the child. This is an image from the Skokie Public Library in Illinois, where Brad Jones, who's the librarian there, models joint media engagement as part of his primary Time Plus digital storytelling program. And he's a really creative dude. He was on the train to work one day, and a pigeon flew through the doors of the train and was on the train. So he whips out his smartphone and takes a picture. Here's Brad's pigeon. So he puts it up on the screen at Storytime that day and told the kids what was happening, and he got them to tell a story of what the pigeon was doing on the train. And of course that led to some of the Mo Willems pigeon books and the app as well. And I love this. It exemplifies the kind of real world application and humor and critical literacy skills that not only help children learn in this kind of informal setting, but that will be necessary for them to be successful later on in life. And Storytime is a place where we can very vividly display for parents the journey from consumer to creator when it comes to this kind of new media, even for the very youngest of children. So on the topic of creation, we at Little ELIT are also beginning to expand out into content creation ourselves. Here's a picture of me and one of my gracious mentors and colleagues, Dr. Betsy Diamond-Cohen, who is one of those Storytime gurus I mentioned before, and who developed a parent engagement musical storytelling model called Mother Goose on the Loose, which also now incorporates best practices for new media with kids under the age of 3. So behind us on the screen there is the Mother Goose on the Loose felt board app that we developed with a lovely husband and wife development team called Software Smoothie. And this app is designed to foster parent-child engagement, and it's a free app. It's all well and good for us librarians to be blazing trails in our respective libraries, but there's a lot of reinventing the wheel going on. So what we've begun doing at Little ELIT is working with the leaders in other professions and offering the expertise of the children's librarian to those working with new media and young children. So here's a photo of a brainstorming meeting that we had in Chicago in September that was instigated by Little ELIT and hosted by the Tech Center at Erickson and attended by the Association of Library Services to Children, the Tech Center, the Fred Rogers Center, Digital Storytime, and Children's Technology Review. The result of this meeting has been a board action from the Association of Library Services to Children to support Little ELIT's activities in developing training materials for children's librarians under advisement from representatives from NAEYC, Fred Rogers, Joan Gantz Cooney, the New America Foundation, the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, Every Child Ready to Read, the California State Library, the Brazelton Touchpoints Institute, and others. So we'll be rolling out this training to place children's librarians as guides for early childhood educators and families alike. We're currently planning a national forum with all of those organizations to launch nationally. So we're working with our local AEYC chapters and with NAEYC as well. I've presented at PDI. I've represented Libraryland at NAEYC Annual in DC. Just published my first NAEYC article in Teaching Young Children with Karen Nemeth, who is a force of nature. And she's very supportive of the work we've been doing at Little ELIT, especially as it relates to using technology with dual language learners, and she has blogged for us as well. So who and where are we? Currently, we have about 35 representatives from 20 states and Canadian provinces who are sharing what they've learned from their implementations and reporting back on Little ELIT at conferences and in trainings and in workshops all over the continent. So what's unique about our little community is that we apply traditional librarian skills, curation and evaluation of media, and we apply it to emergent technologies. The Campaign for Grade Level Reading refers to the new digital marketplace for children as the digital Wild West, because it is still largely a free-for-all when it comes to format types and accessibility, quality of the content, and there are no stewards who are safeguarding the safety and age appropriateness like we have for print. So what we're trying to do is position children's librarians to fill that role digitally in the same way that we've been doing in print for years. In conclusion, I'd very much like it if you'd consider us for this award. My librarians and contributors are working so hard to share what they're learning, often on their own time. They're using their own personal devices in their programs if their libraries can't afford them. They're buying their own apps. They're getting themselves to conferences to spread the word. They're showing up at city council meetings. They're offering themselves as resources to local Head Starts and preschools. They're sharing the knowledge they've gained freely for the benefit of our profession and for the professions and families that we serve. I can't even begin to compensate them for all the work they've done, and they really deserve an award like this. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you can help me thank them for all the work they've done. Thank you.